Okay, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that there is a huge disruption in the force, right? The deep state seems to be going after Donald Trump with everything that they have. To help me better understand what's going on, I have an attorney, an in-house attorney for Save America that represents Donald Trump, Christina Bobb. Christina, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So I know you've been following the Trump Colorado and the Maine ballot removal situation. As a lawyer, what are your thoughts on the cases themselves? But more importantly, is this just happening naturally, or is there an invisible hand pushing these lawsuits forward in order to do everything possible to keep Donald Trump away from the White House?
Yeah, I think the woke establishment, the woke political establishment, is terrified of Donald Trump because he will deprive them of their power, their stranglehold on power. The power of the American government belongs to the American people, and that's where Donald Trump intends to centralize the powers with the American people, not with this small group of elitists that believe they have the right to control everything about our lives. So that's one of the main reasons why they hate him so much, and they know he's incredibly popular. He's got all the support of the people, and I think that that this is going to end up working out in Donald Trump's favor. I think the court cases are really unfortunate. I think it's really an abuse of the system. But it's so clear. It's so clear that Donald Trump is allowed to be on the ballot that I think the Supreme Court will decisively rule in favor of allowing him on the ballot. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's a unanimous decision.
Okay. I had the head of the GOP in Colorado on not long ago. His name is David. And he said that from all the research that he and Jay Sudlow, or shoot, I can't remember.
Jay Sekulow?
Seculo, thank you. Sorry. That they've been doing, that this is something that the Democrats and the establishment elite of Washington, D.C., they've been working on this strategy for months and months. They were shopping this around to different states, trying to see who was going to take the bait, which one was going to lean the way they wanted. Have you heard anything like that as far as this being them trying to find the exact location where they would get the best results?
I'm not particularly familiar with that. I'm sure, we've seen how the liberal establishment, or not just liberal, the political establishment works. So venue shopping is not the way the law is supposed to work, but we know it's a game that is played, and people try to get away with it. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. They also need to look for officials that will go along with them, right? So there's a few different aspects to that, but I don't specifically know anything about specific targets.
Okay. I've heard you say, I've heard others say that what's happening in Maine is so obviously election interference that there's no other way to see it. How are you seeing it as a lawyer, where a Secretary of State with no criminal charge, no law degree, no connection to the Supreme Court bench of Maine makes a unilateral decision to block 1.3 million people from voting for or against Donald J. Trump?
Well, it's unlawful, it's unconstitutional, it's an attempt to interfere with Donald Trump's campaign. It's an attempt to dissuade voters, leading them to believe that he has problems that don't actually exist. So I think it's election interference by a public official. That's my opinion. Um, we'll see what the Supreme Court says about the ballots. I think, like I said, I think that'll be a decisive opinion. But I think it's really tragic what these officials are doing to Donald Trump.
Yeah. When do you think we might hear from the Supreme Court on, first of all, are they willing to take up these cases?
Yeah.
And second of all, they're going to have to rush this in order to get it through quickly. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. So President Trump's team is going to be filing their brief today, I believe. And we'll see how quickly the Supreme Court takes it up. To your point, I do think they'll take it up quickly. I think they see what's happening in Colorado, happening in Maine, recognizing that other states may try to do the same. Maybe Republican states start doing it to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. This can get out of hand really quickly. And so I think that the Supreme Court will take it up to make a decisive decision pretty quickly.
Do you think they want to take it up, or is it kind of being forced on them?
Well, I mean, I hope when they agreed and they took their oath to be Supreme Court justices that they wanted to make the hard decisions. I mean, that's the whole point of being a Supreme Court justice. You want to be the one to make the hard decisions. I think what we're seeing is us, and I don't specifically mean the Supreme Court at this, but I think conservatives in particular have been really disappointed in the judiciary. And we've seen judges hide from making the hard decisions. So what they want to do, I don't know, but that's why they're there.
Yeah. Okay. You've been taken out of context, I'm sure, many times representing President Trump, but just today, the mainstream media is trying to twist your words. They're trying to use your authority and your position as a Trump lawyer with the Save America PAC. But you had just said casually in an interview, regardless of whether Trump is guilty of insurrection or not, he deserves to be on the ballot. Now they're saying, wait a minute, Trump's super lawyer is saying that he committed insurrection, that he is guilty of this crime. I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to this and help us understand why they might be attacking you and twisting your words.
I don't even specifically remember that interview. I have done multiple interviews today, so I don't remember the context of the conversation. But I would imagine that what I was trying to point out was that the insurrection clause, whatever you want to call it, in the 14th Amendment that bans or prevents people from holding office, doesn't apply to the president. It just doesn't apply. I mean, the law, that amendment, the 14th Amendment, is very clear who it applies to. It applies to senators, it applies to members of Congress, it applies to state legislators, and it says that, it specifically says who that amendment applies to, and it's not the president. The president is not listed. So that section doesn't even impact President Trump. So I honestly don't remember the context of that, but that's probably what I was getting at, was even if they found him guilty, that section does not apply to the president. I don't remember, but that might be it.
Gotcha. Well, and I can only assume that MSNBC, CNN, they are, watching you, always trying to find something that they can twist. I mean, for heaven's sakes, they've been saying Donald Trump's marriage is on the rocks because Melania didn't come to the New Year's party. And then it turns out she's in the hospital with her dying mother. I mean, they take every opportunity to stab this man in the back and twist it every chance they can get.
They do. They're trying really hard to hurt him. And I'm sorry.
Speaking of the president, I don't know if you saw this, but this morning, President Trump listed on Truth Social, he put a 32-page PDF of all the areas of concern about the 2020 election. We know for certain that the CIA and other former intelligence officers lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story. So that was a massive interference. But I don't know if you've looked over the 32-page PDF and wanted to see if you think there's any validity to the context of those 32 pages.
And yes, I have read through it. I think there's a lot of legitimate concerns in there. I mean, there's a lot of questions about what happened in all of the swing states. And I think he put it out for the American people to read and, decide for yourself, what you think. I think a lot of the questions that we have are very legitimate questions. I think a lot of the evidence, despite the left's attempt to say there is no evidence, a lot of the evidence that exists, which is lined out in that memo or report, I think it goes to show that the narrative of the left is failing.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with someone just yesterday, and Biden lost 18 of the 19 bellwether counties that usually predict. So not only was it a miracle but he lost all of the indicators, Ohio, Florida, these 18 bellwether counties, and then somehow miraculously gets the most votes of any president, including more than Barack Obama, and magically wins this. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. In his next post on Truth Social, Donald Trump claims he did nothing wrong questioning the election. In fact, Democrats have done it every election that Republicans have won. But he said, as head of the government and the commander in chief of the US military, he had a duty under his presidential oath to investigate these anomalies. What are your thoughts on his comments?
I think he's exactly right. He was the president of the United States and he's watching an election being stolen. He absolutely had an obligation to protect the Constitution. So everything he did is smack dab in the middle of his presidential duties, which is why I think he should have presidential immunity. We'll see what the Supreme Court rules on that. But yeah, I think he's exactly right.
Okay. You have a book out called "Stealing Your Vote." Tell us why you wrote that book and what we're going to learn by reading it.
Yeah, so I was an investigative reporter at the time. I was working for One American News, and I was covering the election fraud. I spent months and months on the ground in Arizona, and in Wisconsin, and Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I was all over the place, interviewing election officials, elected officials, state representatives, and senators, volunteers, voters. I was interviewing everybody for my work as an investigative reporter and reporting on it. And I was just getting so much information. I did not have enough airtime to actually report everything. So I just started writing it down to keep track of it all. And I like to joke, I accidentally wrote a book. It turned into a book. So it was all of the stuff that, I probably didn't have time to cover on the air. And it goes into, it's all eyewitness accounts of things. It's either my own eyewitness account of things, or it's, somebody there, a voter or a volunteer, a worker, their eyewitness accounts of what was happening at that time. And then, the solution is we all have to get involved. We all have to clean up our elections at the county level. We can't assume our state reps or Congress, and any federal offices are going to fix this. They're not. We all have to clean up our counties. We have to clean up our precincts. And if we do that, we'll have a secure election. And we're on our way to do that. I would like to see more, but we have to start cleaning up our counties and our precincts.
Yeah. I've always heard, and I thought it was a joke for a while. They used to say, the Democrats are so good that even the dead vote for them. But as I was watching after the 2020 election, state after state started releasing these reports of having hundreds of thousands of dead people on their voter rolls. And then it was these Democrat cities or county official fighting tooth and nail to keep dead people on the voter rolls. Why on earth would you want to keep voter rolls false and oversized and not cleaned up? I don't understand why you wouldn't want to pare that down to the actual number.
Right. Well, the argument for keeping dead voters on the voter rolls is that they're marked as dead, so they can't vote. And if anything is cast and it's not counted, and it's keeping record of, making sure that dead voters aren't voting. That's the argument behind keeping dead voters on. There's some merit to it, but the bigger issue is I think a lot of the problems with the voter rolls aren't dead voters. It's just the massive influx of non-existent people, or people who register who move out of state, or for example, some research was done in Wisconsin shortly after the 2020 election, and there was a hearing held in the Wisconsin Assembly, and an expert came on and said, he took a look at the voter roll that he got from the state of Wisconsin, and it had 7 million people on it. Well, there's only 3.5 million residents in Wisconsin over the age of 18. So there's only 3.5 million eligible voters. Why do you have twice? That's enough to change the outcome of the election. Well, they go back and forth and say, well, some are marked inactive. And It means that if someone leaves the state and then comes back in, they don't have to re-register. They're still registered. They're just changed to active. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that goes into voter rolls, but the biggest problem is the easiest way to cheat is through dirty voter rolls. And so I think you're exactly right. We've got to clean them up. It's got to be, the rules need to be a lot cleaner than they are. There needs to be a lot of people, not legitimate people, I mean names, removed from the voter roll. People who don't live in the state anymore, who, you know, are gone for whatever reason or somehow became ineligible. All of that needs to be cleaned up.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and keep fighting, keep people honest, keep, you know, letting Trump know that there are a lot of people out there that want him to keep moving forward. And we'll just hope for the best as far as the U.S. Supreme Court decision. Thank you so much. I'll leave that link down below. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.